Hi Lacey, welcome to my final presentation. The biggest takeaway from doing this career workbook was that it actually got me to think about my future as more than just a joke. I've never dug this deep into what I want for my career before, and it has done me some good, I'll tell you that. I came to the conclusion that I am in fact a floater and I don't have one set path for my life or my career. I am pretty much happy with anything and I'm along for the ride. I never thought of myself as someone who doesn't plan for the future, but here I am and I'm ready for anything, honestly. I think my favorite exercise was figuring out what I wanted in a workspace because I learned that I need to have a great group of people around me. I cannot work in an environment without people I can trust and hang out with. In addition, I learned that I need a more creative job to be happy. I'm a highly creative person, and that is something I want for my life over anything else. When I move out of college into my career, I want to keep in mind the connections I have made and who I can ask for help. Just from doing this workbook, I noticed that I am not alone, and I have a lot of people that I can go to that want me to succeed. I think I will continue to work on myself and search for the right path for me by doing research and furthering my brand. Onto my marketing materials. First, I have my resume, and what I really wanted to do was make it visually appealing as well as have all the information that I needed for employers. I learned that I really needed to keep it concise and to the point so it isn't too wordy and boring. Next is my cover letter, where I wanted to really showcase my skills and how they would help me in the workplace. I used a traditional 3-paragraph layout, but left room to customize my letter to different positions I apply to in the future. As for my leave behind, we talked in our one-on-one meeting about how I didn't feel the promotional flyer aligned with my personal brand and that I could come up with something different to leave behind. Therefore, I designed stickers out of some of my tech flats and my website. On the back of each sticker, similar to a business card, you can find my contact information, and I absolutely love it. I think it's so much more me, and I can really see myself using it and creating new ones as my brand expands. This is my professional Instagram page. Similarly to my other marketing items so far, I wanted to keep it really visual and colorful. I love color, and I wanted that to be present in the images that I posted. Making an Instagram made me really nervous in the beginning because I've never had one before, but I'm really getting the hang of it and I kind of enjoy it now. Coming up with new ideas and posts is a really creative way for me to really get out there and use a new medium, and I think it's great. Again, I kept with the colorful vibe on my LinkedIn page by using a snapshot of my Instagram as the header. Here you can also see my About Me and my title. Next, I included my portfolio with a link so it would be easy to get to. Here is a screenshot of my blog activity and postings. Usually when I posted on LinkedIn was because I had a new blog post. I had never posted anything on LinkedIn before until this class, but I found it really insightful, especially when people with interesting jobs would comment and like my post. Here we have my work experience, education, and volunteer experience, and my skills, and my recommendations. For my recommendations, I asked a few of my teachers to write one for me, and I found it to be an easy process because I know them well enough to know that they would say yes, but I was surprised that some of my friends wrote them for me without being asked, and that made me feel really good. I gave 2 recommendations to some of my classmates, and again, I thought it was enlightening to write about how great they are because I go to school with such talented people, and I had fun sharing that with potential employers that they'll have in the future. Lastly, on my LinkedIn page, I have a few accomplishments. In addition, on my LinkedIn, I started interacting with brands and postings. Usually, when I would look through my feed in the morning, I would find articles that were really interesting and thought my connections would find interesting too. Here in this image was from Burberry that was in connection with some young designers that I thought was really cool because a major brand is helping out young people. Finally, we've made it to my portfolio website. Like the rest of my marketing materials, I kept the neutral pink color because I thought it would be a nice backdrop for my work. On my homepage, it leads you right into my different portfolios. When you hover over the words, different pictures appear as a sneak peek of that portfolio. At the bottom of my homepage, I have my Instagram feed that doesn't auto-populate for some reason. I need to fix that somehow, as well as some contact information. Onto my portfolios, I really wanted to separate my portfolios based on the type of work that I have done because I have a lot of stuff to show and wanted to keep it really organized. Here is my technical design portfolio, my illustration and studio art portfolio, my creative direction portfolio, and some merchandising and extras. At the bottom of each feed, there are arrows to direct the viewer to the next portfolio to make it easy to access. Next is my blog, where I talked about some topics that related to my fashion adventure. Overall, I thought the blogs were the hardest for me because I never knew what to write about and I didn't know what people would find interesting. I think as I move forward, I need to sit down and really think about what I want to talk about, and I think as long as I keep with my personal brand and what I want to talk about, that's really the best option. And I want to make a big list so I don't have a creative block. I did learn that having a lot of images and a nice visual to click on is better because then people get interested more quickly and want to read it. Also, on my portfolio, I made an About Me page that I wanted to keep super personal and informative about me. I am a pretty personal person, and I wanted people to see me and who I am because obviously, if you come onto my portfolio, you aren't meeting me in person, but I wanted to keep it as energetic and as me as possible. Lastly, we have my contact page that has a nice, easy forum, a link to my LinkedIn, my Instagram, as well as my email. For my photo shoot, my main inspiration was the juxtaposition of someone who is done up and the deconstruction of industrial areas, like the nations that we shot in. I had a lot of layering, print, and color to play off of the hard locations. Since this was my first photo shoot, I wanted to keep the styling similar to my own personal style because I didn't really have a lot of funds to go out and buy a ton of new items. Therefore, most of the clothing is my own. However, I did source pieces from local thrift and vintage stores in the area. As for hair and makeup, I wanted to keep it super natural and simple because I wanted the clothing to stand out more. And I didn't want a lot of close-up shots, so I didn't think it would be necessary. Overall, I wanted to keep the vibe very relaxed, but still model-esque. The biggest thing I learned when doing this photo shoot was to work with people you work well with. I ended up working with Ansley's photographer boyfriend for this project, and it was a great pairing because he knew what he was doing and he could help me when I needed it. I did find that as we got to talking and he looked over my production deck, he was able to come up with some locations that were better than my ideas, and it helped me modify my concept to fit what he had in mind as well. And I think it turned out a lot better when we collaborated on the locations together. As for my model, I asked my friend Melissa, who works for Amax, to help me out, and I knew she and I worked well together because she was my friend, and I was right, it worked out really well. She is super easy to get along with, she was able to work with the photographer as well as me, and we got some great shots. I also found that having her as my model was a plus because she and I are the same size, so styling was a really easy process because I could just fit the clothes to me and I knew they would fit her. Finally, as for challenges, I think one of the biggest challenges was scheduling because all three of us are students and our schedules kind of overlapped, and it was kind of a hard thing to do when looking for schedules. So I think in the future, if I didn't have school and my photographer wasn't in school, it would be easier and wouldn't make things so complicated, but for this project that wasn't the case. When I was looking for people to interview, I started by researching brands on LinkedIn that I liked and seeing who worked for them. Then I looked for people with jobs that I found interesting. For the most part, I was reaching out to random people because I didn't have a lot of connections, and I was honestly surprised by how many of them responded. Though one of my main issues was when people would say that they would meet with me, but ended up never responding to my follow up when I tried to schedule a meeting. I learned that having some sort of a connection to the person I'm reaching out to is good because they know I'm not a complete stranger. I think overall, my success rate was pretty good nonetheless. As for internships, I went a similar route as to the informational interview because I don't have the time to have a job or an internship right now or in the spring. Therefore, it would have been a waste of time for the company to weed out an application that was essentially a dead end. Thus, I reached out to companies that had listings and asked if they were doing summer internships or would be hiring then. I honestly have gotten quite a few responses back so far, and I think I might have gotten an internship this summer with Banded, but I need to clarify first. Overall, it was a good experience, and I got a lot of responses. As you can see, I kind of forgot to finish my target list, so most of my applications were sent the last couple days, but I will follow up soon. For my informational email, I wanted to keep it as short as possible while still getting the point across. I wanted to show who I am, what I do, how I knew the person, and the point of the email. For the most part, this email stayed the same, but was modified for different people. All of my chats went really well. My first two were on Zoom, and then my last one was in person, which was pretty exciting. What I really wanted to get out of my interviews was what it was like to be doing the jobs of those I talked to. The first one, Shannon, was a product developer and technical designer for Disney, and she taught me that you don't always need to be promoted to be happy. She said that her entry-level job as a technical designer was her favorite because she got to be creative, and as she got promoted, her job was less enjoyable. This made me think about product development in a new way, and that maybe technical design is the right job for me. Haley is a graphic designer for Disney, and she told me to do as many internships as I can and learn as much as I can before getting into the field. I didn't know too much about graphic design careers, but she told me that a lot of the work is individual and it is important to leave your own mark on what you do. I thought this was interesting because she said that she makes art to use in her designs, and that is how she stays creative in the field and stands out. This was really appealing to me, and it definitely drew me into the graphic design career. Finally, I talked to Dean Wegner at Authentically American, and he completely scared me away from starting a business. Though I wasn't sure about starting a business in the first place, he told me about how scary and hard it was in the beginning, and I honestly don't think I have a risk-taking personality enough for this job. But it was really nice to get to know his perspective on the apparel industry and the business world as a whole. Overall, my mock interview went really well. Going into it, I was pretty nervous because I hadn't been in an interview in a while and I didn't know what it was going to be like. But Shannon is super easy to talk to, and I felt comfortable instantly. To prepare, I looked over the resources that you put in our homework, as well as I practiced answering questions with my friends. And one of the biggest things that I learned is that you can never be too prepared and to have a backstock of situations that show your character as a worker. And that is something that I will carry with me to every interview that I have in the future. Bye, Lacey. Thank you so much for a great semester. I had a lot of fun. This was a great class and I learned so much. And I will leave you with my marketing materials and my contact information. Have a nice break.